This session seeks to build upon the success of the summit and the GPAI virtual convening earlier this year that included critical discourse on the subdomains of crop advisory, market access, and climate resilient agriculture. I'd like to now just introduce the panel we have for you.
Globally, the estimates are there are about 600 million farmers, and they roughly own about 1/3 of the total crop production, the food supply, and about 1/4 of the entire agriculture area. Coming to the agriculture value chain, and in terms of the financing, essentially, and these are global numbers, the financing gap across the entire chain, whether it is farmer credit, supply chain finance, which is post the farmer stage, or consumer finance, you're looking at only 1/3 of the requirement is being met today. 2/3 of financing requirements are still not being met. And this is kind of a proportion that hasn't moved much over the years. So what are the challenges lenders face today? So when we talk to lenders, one of the things that they say is, look, this is a high-risk segment. They don't have enough data to work with. Their credit models are not that great. They do face NPLs, non-performing loans. Legacy data, low accuracy of the credit models, as I mentioned. And then another factor is the transaction cost. The way the information is collected, the way it is approved, the way the costs are also incurred at the farmer end, the entire transaction cost of making that loan sometimes makes that loan exercise unfeasible. When you talk about the borrowers, they typically see lower approval rates. Money lenders, which is the informal borrowing that many of them tend to do, tends to be very expensive. I've taken an average number of 20 to 50%. I've heard numbers going up to annualized rates of 200% plus. No formal credit history. Again, the data records are missing. And obviously, in a whole host of cases, there's a lack of collateral. Even if there's a collateral, there are very often legal limitations around whether that collateral value can be realized in the case of default. Let's bring it in the context of India. You're looking at 15% of the GDP, about 150 million farmers. Mr. Chawla just shared numbers, including some of the other sectors. We're looking at a market of potential need for $600 billion of finance, out of which today what is being met is essentially about, again, 1/3. So the proportion here is not different to the global 1/3 that we looked at. So today, the institutional finance is about 37%. 16% is coming through informal finance, which is the money lenders, family, friends, etc., that are being.
So once the land parcels are identified, what's growing, right? Like that means, like, is it a cropland or is it grassland and things like shrublands? No, these are difficult problems to solve. We have some publications also around this. Once that is done, then we have to identify what are the crops growing, right? And then it's important to understand the yield, right? So here you can determine the performance of a particular land based on yield or biomass and things like that. So I'll not go into the details of it, but we have also gone to the field and verified it through crop cutting experiments also. So those become our validation set, right? So one of the most important, unlike I do come from computer vision background, one of the major challenges with respect to collecting of data in agriculture is unlike computer vision problems where you can go and annotate, data has to be collected seasonal, and once you miss that, even harvesting is already done, then you cannot go back and look at what was the crop which was grown, what was the yield and everything, So these are some practical challenges. So timing is really important, right? And once the season is done, then there is no going back, right? We did release also recently a language model. This is open source. So this is one of our first contribution to the agriculture community in large. Our open source model is called Akshara. You can go and interact with it on Hugging Face. You can just type on Google Hugging Face Crop in AI Lab Akshara and you will find it. This is also based on responsible AI. It's on climate smart agriculture. So you want any advisories for 9 different crops in the global south, it will actually provide a responsible response to the query that you.
As we know that pest attacks are one of the major causes for crop loss, and the most impactful ones from this particular problem are the smallholder farmers. And one of the issues that we have also found while doing the research was there's a lot of pesticide usage onto the field, which also degrades the soil health. So that with that intention, we chose this particular problem. What we try to do, it's a computer vision problem. So we started in 2020 with a product called Cottonase, and what we try to do is to do early pest warning by detecting what pest is that in that particular image, and accordingly, based on the image and the ETL level, try to generate an advisory around it, so that farmer are able to take those decisions, what is to be followed, how it is to be followed, and so that again the same problem of optimizing yield. So this is for a simple cotton growing farmer. The trap that he has installed onto the field, he just have to take those pests out from it on a plain surface, just take an image, and that's where the role of AI comes into. It does two things. One, it detects or it identifies what pest is it in that particular image. Second, it counts. The importance of counting over here is that because it is defined by an ETL scientific logic. So economic threshold level helps you define whether what kind of alert category it goes in, whether it's a red alert, green alert, or a yellow alert, and accordingly, based on the alert, the kind of advisory is being suggested. So the last season, we were able to conduct about 15,000 monitoring sessions. Here, monitoring sessions means the number of alerts and the bifurcations. One thing which I just wanted to highlight over here, the role of a collaboration. It would not have been possible without the support of the network organization. So these are all not-for-profit, farmer benefiting organizations onto a field. They trusted in this particular system and they implemented it without having any financial obligations to it. So they felt that this is something which was very important. It would have benefited them, and hence that's what they did.
So what I'm going to do with our extremely diverse and esteemed panel is to try and translate some of that into a few areas that we can all agree to work on as next steps. What I've done is I'm going to break this up into 3 sections. In the first section, I'm going to focus on how do we actually enhance collaboration and reduce competition. Number 2, in the second section, I'm going to focus on multidisciplinary skills that are needed to work on agriculture. Right? We need domain skills, we need to focus on policy, we need to focus on AI, digital skills, etc. But how do we enhance all of them working together, and how do we bring them together? Right? In the third section, I'm going to focus on data. So we're going to try and explore what needs to be done, because agriculture is one of the least digitized sectors, not only in India but around the world. Right? And the data, particularly in India, tends to be uncalibrated, non-standardized, and therefore it is not trustworthy. Right? So how do we change some of that? Because if AI has to succeed, data has to be made much more relevant, much more effective. Let me go to the first section, which is on cooperation. How do we define that, and how do we work on that? There was a panel, there was a task force that Confederation of Indian Industry had led, and that task force suggested that we should bring together private agri entities, engineering colleges, right, and agri state universities together, and forge partnerships between the 3 to try and drive better outcomes. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, and also a few recommendations as to what should we do going forward.
Thank you very much. Building this partnership requires a kind of a program coordinated by NITI Aayog, or even the Department of Agriculture Cooperation, or even the Indian Council of Agriculture Research. But translating that into real partnership across sectors and private, public, and others, non-government organizations, did not really happen that successfully.
My question, Dr. Mohapatra, would be, can ICAR lead it?
Yeah, I can tell you that this is what is very, very important. Recognizing this, kind of technology strength of ICAR,
right,
and it's and spread all across in all agroclimatic zones where data is being generated at the ground level. In fact, ICAR would be best positioned to really take the leadership role. And bring partners together to do the.
Thank you, Dr. Mohapatra. Dr. Marwaha, if I can go to you. How do we enhance collaboration between ICAR and your institutes and other institutes and the private startups? Give us a couple of recommendations that you think we should do.
Thank you. So first of all, whatever is available in public forums, on our websites, on our databases, many things are not known to them. we have a technology database where all ICR technologies which are actually ready for commercializations are available. And those are very potential things which any startup can take, and they need not invest on the research part even. The research is done, but those information is available.
Challenges, sometimes they don't even aware that that data set
Right.
exists.
So going through all these data sets which are available, and we do run these incubation centers where we guide, we teach, and we inform all startups whosoever approaches us to do these type of basic survey and provide all the information. Second, which you say, is the data actually. So how we provide certain data which can be provided in a public forum, right? So that data which we can share, that we are ready to share rather. Those are available on the websites. So we publish agriculture data book, many things are available through that. So sometimes those information which is available still are not being used by the agri entrepreneurs.
So what should we do? I mean, what do you suggest as the next step that we can, as a country, adopt?
So that was all those steps which we should take actually are being taken, right? In terms of having incubation centers at agriculture universities or that. And the only thing which a company or startup should know that yes, reach out to those incubation centers.
We have an example right here who have not been able to get that kind of feedback, right? Sai, do you want to comment on that?
Definitely, there are a lot of resources available, no denial to that, but access to those resources is difficult. And secondly, any startup who is working in data domain, just having data doesn't solve the problem. It has to be correctly labeled, standardized. Not knowing the accuracy of data, it is difficult to use that data. So in that case, then we end up generating our data, because then on our data, we can do right labeling, right standardization. Because at least for a startup who is data-centric, this particular data quality is very, very important. So we cannot build a model on data which is, yeah.
Thank you.
Nipun, one additional thought in this collaboration would be, yes, why can't we look at a sandbox? Because that's one thing. If you look at the cost that we are looking at in terms, anything with respect to data or AI, sandbox would be a need with a catalog. That might be a potentially an outcome or an action item that we can take.
Right. And one suggestion that was coming up, and I don't know what does Dr. Mehrotra think about that if there's an agri-tech that is getting registered, I think there should be a compendium that is given to them that this is all the data sets that you have access to. These are the websites, these are the government resources, these are the publicly available resources, so that not a single startup should waste even one day in trying to duplicate effort or trying to hunt for information that they might not otherwise get. Right? Dr. Mehrotra, any quick comment on that? If you do you agree with that, or?
No, I think it's a lot more to do with that.
Right.
First of all, if we build this partnership platform, and there is a mechanism for interaction, regular interfacing, and information flow,
right.
Mechanisms well built in the system, I believe that would work out very well. And so all the startups who are initiating their work, there has to be an interface with ICAR, with a wide network of institutions, depending on the interest of the startups and the small companies coming in. I think that would help in a big way. So this, overarching partnership platform would be of great help.
Sai, if I can come to you, and Salman as well, both of you, which is, what are the challenges that you are seeing on the ground in terms of the farmers using AI-based solutions? I mean, they could be from ICAR, they could be your solution, there could be others. Why don't you go first, and then Salman after that?
So with respect to farmer, he doesn't understand between what is AI or what is digital. For him, it has to be something which is more appropriate, more real, and more actionable for him. So the AI technologies which are based on more data sets and more accurate, are able to give accurate advisory, more real time, and more realistic to the ground. I think, and also other aspects like vernacular, something actionable. So any AI technology which is able to solve these problems, the farmers are able to use it. So farmer now here doesn't understand which AI model has been used in backend or what is the technology. For him, it's more of a relevance.
Yeah, I think plus one to what Sai said, just one point to that is, what does farmer is having a fear of? Fear of loss. So there, the AI need to look at solving or reducing risk with respect to, I mean, whatever development it is, whether it's solving a through crop advisory, any credit, it's all about risk. Because for him, it's the matter of income. So the AI solutions need to be well tested, pilot it quick. So what AI is able to do right now is able to expedite the process of failure faster. So fail fast, redevelop it, prove it, and then take it to the farmer. Because trust is another important aspect to the farmer. If it is not working, farmer will lose trust. If it loses trust, then he will never use it.
I think, and as some of the panelists also said earlier, it has been a tech-led approach to some extent. And I think we need to convert that into a balanced approach between technology and domain. Right. I'd like to come back to research, Dr. Mehrotra, and we're very proud of the work that you've been doing on genomics and molecular genetics, etc. What is your thoughts on how is AI actually helping accelerate some of that research capability in the country?
Yeah. In fact, it's a very big answer to this, but I'll be very brief.
And any recommendations as well, if you can make any quick recommendations as well.
That's more important. When I started discussing AI-based applications, in 2017, we had industry partners and ICAR and others who all were involved at that point in time. It was getting initiated. So we had a lot of discussion, one full day discussion on this, and we built a recommendation. And now we have many programs, AI-driven programs, research programs, which are now in place. For instance, we are using, remote sensing-based near real-time crop condition monitoring, and building algorithms, new algorithms, and then redefining many different agri-ecologies, not just one location, one farmer, and different ecologies, and where it works, where it doesn't work, it was presented, and not that everywhere it works. And similarly, for instance, use of sensors and AI in rapid fertility assessment and mapping, soil fertility assessment and mapping. And the input system is so serious a constraint with regard to sustainability of agriculture, and water, fertilizer, and so on. I'll not go into details of it, but that's what we are researching with, and AI is being used. And similarly, not only crops. In fact, we have gone to the fishery and animal husbandry sector. In animal husbandry sector, precision dairy. With regard to health monitoring, mastitis, and estrus detection, detection of parturition time of cattle, and so on and so forth. And so, using AI and sensors, to build that kind of database, and then taking it to the field for application. So there are many such areas where the research is happening, and more so. As Dr. Marwa said, we started with use of genomics. So, we built this facility, and real-time data, huge quantity of real-time data, and using AI to analyze and also apply for prediction of a good phenotype, and then good genotype identification in the process, and building that. And then now, given the kind of technology as it is moving, for instance, gene editing, identifying the right kind of gene and the right kind of site of mutation by using AI and models, different models, whatever available, and so that machine learning tools, so that we can pinpoint and reduce the work of researchers to modify genes at will to give better crops which are climate resilient and for sustainable agriculture, which is so crucial. So that kind of interventions are happening now. So I believe that in years to come, many technology will be coming from ICAR system. Including ICAR means it includes all the 77 universities, who are intricately, in fact, associated with our research programs.
And is this, and are we also collaborating as a country with international institutions? What about the private sector? Are there any recommendations on that?
Yeah. So I'll come to recommendation part of this, that I think, we are interacting with international institutions, which are called CGIAR institutions.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, ICR fund them. In fact, around 50 crore rupees annually is spent on this partnership. We fund very specific research programs and partner in that and get all the international, expertise and experience and also technologies, to the country. And that is how Indian agriculture is contributing to food self-sufficiency and sustaining this 1.4 billion people. But anyway, but coming to very specific recommendation on this, that I believe that the industry partnership has to happen large scale in this program. I think there is little bit of isolation, industry, particularly the startups and the youngsters, they are coming into this field, and data is being generated afresh. And I believe the kind of expertise, experience available with the university system and ICAR system, there should be complementarity, and there will be faster progress. And this has to happen at a faster pace.
Who should take the lead, sir?
I invited several times and we had interactions, but it has not jailed. I believe that a little bit of investment would spur this activity and jail it happen, faster. So without that, probably, that would not really be materializing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Keeping a watch on the clock, I'm going to move to the third section, and I'm going to talk about data and issues around data, right? Data interoperability, sharing of data, because that ultimately is the raw material for AI. And what are the problems? The problem number one is that agriculture is one of the least digitized sectors. There isn't enough of data sharing that happens between the private sector and the public sector. And a lot of the data that exists or that is available in silos, in the different formats and different types of data, etc. So that leads to a whole range of issues where we do not have enough data to work on some of our AI models. So we certainly need governance, as that was pointed out by some of the keynote speakers as well. We need to find ways to exchange data, to use technology like a data exchange, etc. But I'd like to get your thoughts on if you can frame that whole issue around data standardization, lack of calibration, etc., please.
Thanks, Nipun. So this is what I was thinking, because everybody started off with the data quality, but the real reason for why we don't have a data quality and why there is a skepticism in sharing all this. So first part is, I believe Agri is a very diverse and a complex ecosystem. And without a standardization, it is very, very difficult, because you're measuring the same parameter in Tamil Nadu and in Bihar, but is represented in a different way. So when you collect data, it needs to be standardized, because across nomenclature, across matrices that you're collecting, the units that you're defining, all these are at different scales, right? So when you converge all this, even though you have a quality, the perception will be you don't have a quality. So how do you bring it to a general approach is a key thing. So probably taking an analogy from telecom, the reason why it has been so strong and standing is it is built on standards, protocols, and everything is documented. So everybody who is coming into the ecosystem follow the same thing. So that's a want of the hour for agriculture, right?
Yeah.
Because if we have compute, we have memory, we have skills, and we also have data protection. The biggest thing that is lacking is standardization, and that's the need of the hour.
Okay.
So the second part that I wanted to talk about is on the reason why people are a little skeptical in sharing, because people say data is important, my model is important. So with so much of advent, there are confidential compute rooms, there are data exchanges where while you protect the farmers, you also protect the data providers. So that will bring a lot of collaboration is the next thing that we want to focus on, Nipun.
So protect the data providers.
Yes,
Okay.
because standardization and protection to multiple means. The third part is why somebody is not sharing a data. It's awareness. 10 years back, you and me were worried about sharing our data for a credit score. Today, all of us are open. Why? Because we have seen the benefit of it. So how do you make the ecosystem be aware of why am I sharing the data? What is the benefit in it for me? Which can also be driven by short-term use cases like financial inclusion, right? Which will lead to showcasing immediate results, building trust, and people see the benefits.
Perfect, very good. So help people realize the benefits that they can get, number one. Number two, protect the data providers as well, not just the farmers, but also the people who are actually collecting data. And the third, you said, is standardization. And standardization, I'm assuming you're talking about not only what you collect, but how you collect it. So the process of collecting information.
It includes process,
right?
The approach that we collect, how do we want to calibrate it, all this also matters.
Perfect. Sai, you've been a data company, so I'd like to hear your thoughts.
So I think Abhay is very right that that process is not yet set. So for example, if today I have to share data, I'll have to start that process from taking consent from the users. Because data privacy is a big issue. I cannot just start as a private company, I cannot share data without consent. So that should be the step one, that while any private company or government organization is collecting the farmer-specific data, there has to be consent and those things, regulatory things sorted. Second is confidentiality can be managed by slicing that data to macro and micro level by masking it. So let's say if data accuracy is needed at the block level, village level, it can be masked so that it can be used readily rather than waiting for a consent. So that way, immediate access of data can be also solved without waiting for the individual farmer consent.
So that would enable data providers to actually share data. That would enable you to share data with somebody else, other private sector players.
I wanted to add something also to this. I think one of the key element is what kind of value we put to the data. You know, now somebody might say that I go and collect data from the field. It might cost me 50 rupees. You know, but the actual value of collection and data correction and validation, all of that is almost at least 10 times that. You know.
Okay.
So data providers, I mean data collectors, if you incentivize that, then sharing also becomes much more easier, because the value for, I would say that, current AI systems, knowing AI systems very well, curated data, good quality data, have much more higher significance than like large amount of data. So data diversity and smaller amount of data is critical. So if we, even for that smaller curated data, if we are able to give higher valuation, then, I think data will become ubiquitous, and for selected crops, selected varieties, it doesn't have to be a huge amount, right? So already we have invested a lot of revenue. I think the major issue has been in focusing on the curation quality and the valuation of it. If we just increase that by a factor of 10 or at least a factor of 10 times, the amount and quality of data that we are going to get is really beautiful.
Okay.
That's first thing. One more additional point I want to add is, looking at the future also, we have to look a little bit about the future of AI as well. The future of AI is not going to be data-driven alone. It's also knowledge-driven. Indian agriculture system is a humongous powerhouse of knowledge. But how do we codify that, structure it, and bring it in a centralized, representative way? Call it knowledge graphs or anything, is very, very critical, because the relationship between crops, pests and diseases, soil, and it's all interconnected, right? So that interconnection, so if we add the knowledge layer to it, you know, even data uncertainty, the uncertainty around data goes away.
Right, I agree with that. Who do you think should lead it?
That's a great question. But I think it should be.
Are you suggesting that the government leads it, ICAR leads it, or the private sector leads it, or an ecosystem approach leads it?
Well, there should be a centralized representative, but it can be like even private players like us, like Wikipedia, right? Like we were discussing, Wikipedia, like how Wikipedia is like really crowd driven. I'm ready to contribute, you know, but I cannot.
You're willing to contribute, okay. Sai, what do you think, given your work that you've done on collecting data sets, etc., what has been your estimates of the cost that has been incurred by you? I mean, if you can just take some rough estimates.
Actually, cost is pretty high because for us, that data accuracy was the key in building those models. So for 4 years, we conducted multiple experiments with ICRISAT. So we worked with ICRISAT for 4 years. So 20 scientists working for 4 years, conducting at least 100, what do you call, central control plots. So
Can you convert that into one number, or can you convert that into something take away?
yeah, so it is somewhere between $2 to $3 million.
Wow. So that is the cost that you incurred in collecting one data set. Right. Now
These
imagine,
were multiple,
okay,
like
fine.
4
fine.
data sets.
4
but
data
yeah.
sets, okay. But imagine if there are other startups also replicating and trying to do the same thing, that they are incurring a similar cost in doing this, exactly replicating
And
the same data set.
it's also the time, because agriculture,
I
it's a
agree.
season.
I agree. There was an estimation that 70% of Indian agri-tech players actually spend 70% of the cost and effort, etc., in duplicated effort. So
Correct.
that's an example of what
Yeah.
you're giving.
And like I know from my peers, they do the same.
They do the same thing, right? So the discussion that we were having, Dr. Marwa, on data and sharing and ICAR, etc., and making that available, not just ICAR data, but also the government of India data,
So
etc.
what Dr. Mehrotra told in a way that a platform. So agriculture-based shared data platform where both private and public data can be present there. May not be free, may be priced,
Sure.
but the platform should be there where everyone can start contributing the data sets.
I agree.
And then it may be a
I agree.
marketplace also.
I agree.
So
We
that,
should-
it
we should
should
have
be
a national-
at least available. So
Correct.
if somebody wants to get that data, and if you say by himself he incurs such a cost, and if that data is available in a lesser cost, yes, I should go about it. So a collaborative data platform, and sir also told about the funding.
Yes.
And I believe we should recommend that some big player should contribute as a CSR funds for giving a seed money for developing that.
If you look at the amount of money which we as a country are spending by individual players spending a few $1 million each, there is enough money available.
Right, that's what I'm
If you
saying.
can channelize
So
that
even-
to a common effort.
so
Okay, cool. I think, Sanjay, any points from your side on this?
ICR has a clear-cut policy on a CSR.
Sure,
They can
sure,
fund
sure.
ICR for CSR for developing
Wait,
this platform.
wonderful, wonderful. I know we are out of time almost, but Sanjay, any quick
No, I think
comments?
we're touching on the right piece. The fodder for all this is, if I use that term, is data. And I think there are a lot of other industries that have gone through similar challenges over the last couple of decades. My background's financial services. So if I look at banking in kind of the late 90s, early 2000s, and how it's progressed, we didn't have standardization, which is where this started happening at the global level with the Basel Committee for Banking Supervision. We had different accounting standards, which is where International Accounting Standards Board came around, IASB. But I do find that while there's a lot of willingness from academia, from private sector, etc., a government leadership and initiatives like this gives it a lot more continuity.
Sure, absolutely.
And also attracts, a lot of kind of, I would say, funding, interest, etc. And the independence of the government in a way starts, influencing some balanced approach rather than commercial biases that might come in.
Yes, I agree with that. The government has a huge responsibility from an agriculture standpoint as well. And so agriculture cannot really make progress without government support. But I think we can all conclude, and there were some very good ideas and actions that came out of this session, and we'll summarize it, and we'll work with GPAI to take it forward. But we can all conclude that I think collaboration is the only way, and an ecosystem-led approach is the only way to go forward, number one. Number two, try to build data sets and infrastructure, digital public infrastructure, in a collaborative manner between the private sector and the government, etc., is the other thing that we should focus on. Every private sector company building their own infrastructure is a waste of money, is a waste of time. We are just not able to solve agricultural issues fast enough, right? So wonderful, thank you so much.